Welcome, everybody, to another glorious episode of the Put on Waivers podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. A little bit more Southern Cal today than it was yesterday. Yesterday was all rainy down here in San Diego. I didn't know what to do with myself, but now it's back to sunshine and everything like that. So, also have Ryan Holmes with us today as well. Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And a guest I was watching, Tape Don't Lie. I've been following Matt for a while. Good time to have him on the draft and all that scout stuff. Matt Holder, how you doing today? Can you tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter and everything like that?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at mholder95. Just been doing draft stuff, putting up draft videos for expandtheboxscore.com. But yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you letting me have me on.
Yeah, no problem. So can you talk a little bit about your journey to get to this point where you're just like, just diving in, and I mean, it could be some long hours. I'm looking at the tight end, backup tight end, and some of these schools and stuff like that. What are your thoughts about how you started to where you are now?
Yeah, man. So my story kind of started. I played college ball. Always wanted to get involved in the game. Always wanted to do something involved in football. Been part of my life for too long. And ended up after my playing days were done, spending an extra year in the recruiting department for our school. Ended up kind of falling in love with the player eval side of that, and ended up spawning that into where I am now, kind of going through stuff, doing stuff like graduating from the scouting academy and kind of building on that. And been covering the draft since 2019. Last year, I covered it for Just Blog Baby for the Raiders specifically, and then just kind of wanted to get more into the weeds of the draft process, like he's saying, figuring out who's tight end 23. I'm weird like that. I don't know why. It's such a big deal to me, finding that 6th-round guy that's going to be the next, big thing or whatnot. But and then eventually, luckily, I knew somebody over at Expand the Box Score when they were starting their scouting team, and hopped on board there in July, and it's kind of been a ride ever since. Now I'm been pretty well versed on the late round guys. So since I started late with them, I didn't get the cream of the crop to do the reports, but yeah.
As far as the Senior Bowl, I know you went through this year. That experience is always an interesting one. Did you find anything there where you said, hey, the sleepers, guys who you think maybe might be able to be impact players on Sunday, maybe on a defensive line?
On a defensive line, defensive line is a little bit tougher. The Senior Bowl guys, honestly, a lot of them I think ended up disappointing. Like the guy that comes up first is kind of Marvin Wilson, which has kind of been unfortunately the theme of the year for him. I know there was a little bit, from what I've heard, it was a little bit outside circumstances. He wasn't getting along with the coaching staff, and that was part of the reason. But the guy that kind of stood out to me the most was actually Osa Odighizuwa. I'm going to butcher that name for the rest of the show, and probably up until draft day, until his career is over. But he was a guy who I actually watched going into. So obviously I was kind of curious to see what he'd do in the Senior Bowl. And for me, he was a guy that I viewed his run defense as light years ahead of his pass rush. And especially in the fight and the finesse rush aspect of things. He was a decent power rusher when he could get his get off and hands right and put some pressure on the quarterback, but I didn't really see many finesse moves from him. And then he goes over to the Senior Bowl and just kills it. I mean, he was killing guys left and right and showing a wide variety of pass rush moves. And, to me, definitely earned some points. I think I have him grades still a lot great in our draft guide, but I think he could be a guy in the 5th round, maybe 4th round too, that the Raiders could pick up and really bolster that pass rush, play that 3 technique. Because I think that was part of his problem too at UCLA is UCLA played him everywhere from about a 0 to a 6 or a wide or like a 7 technique outside. So he never really got a chance to sit there and play one spot and where I thought he was best. And that's kind of I think part of the reason why he's not getting as much hype. And then Senior Bowl, he goes in, played some 1 and played to anywhere from a 1 to a 3 technique and just shined, had a great week. Daniel Jeremiah, I think during the game, called him out in the broadcast and ended up getting a sack in the game against Deontay Brown. So Yeah, I think that's the guy that a lot of Raider fans need to pay attention to as a day 3 guy. That's when no one else is watching the draft anymore, except for myself and Ryan.
Yeah,
I'll be watching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One question. One more question before I'll give it over to Ryan. Do you, like, when you're watching other people who do what you do, when they just pick a Raider, they pick a player and they say, okay, this team had a bad defense. Boom, I'm gonna just mock a defensive player there without any concept of what their guts, like the scheme they're gonna run. Do you take those guys kind of seriously? Is there a group of guys who you take, who you say when they say, oh, they mock a player to there, do you take them more seriously than some of the other guys?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, the guy that kind of I look up to the most in this industry is Dane Brugler. And I mean, I can tell you from when I was scouting Landon Dickerson, he wasn't getting a whole lot of love at the time. And then I'm sitting there watching him like, this guy's tape is unreal. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, okay, what am I missing? Why is nobody talking about this guy? Then a week later, I see, Dane Brugler is talking about him being a first rounder. I'm like, okay, I'm on to something here. Like, that's the kind of guy that definitely I pay the most attention to. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's the best. When I was doing the scouting academy, Dan Hatman, who's been who's a former scout and worked in the NFL front offices for years, had specifically mentioned him to me as him being one of the best. So that kind of carried a lot of weight to me. And the other guy that I like that I think is a little bit more polarizing, I know other people don't, some people don't like him as much, is going to be Mike Renner from PFF. I've always kind of found his takes interesting. He definitely definitely can get out there, definitely has some interesting opinions on times. I wouldn't agree with him as much. If I see Dane and Mike arguing against each other on something, not that they do, I'm definitely going to side with Dane just if I don't know anything about it. But yeah, those are the two guys that I kind of like try and model after on those two that I really like the most. And then my other guy would probably be Daniel Jeremiah. But those are the three. Those are my big 3, if you will. What about you guys? You guys have anybody you guys like?
Yeah, I follow Brugler. Like you said, he's pretty good. He puts out some pretty extensive lists. I always look to see how he ranks the guys at different positions.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I'm still a Mel Kiper guy, and I watched Mel Kiper growing up. I still go to him more than McShay, and I love listening to their podcast, First Draft, and just listening to them arguing back and forth. But
yeah,
I mean, Daniel Jeremiah is good. There's guys that I don't like, and like he was saying, if I see Owusu Koramoah and he's mocked to a 3-4 team as an outside edge rusher as a linebacker, I'm out. Like, you got to understand what kind of schemes these guys fit in. But those are the main guys, mainly just, Kiper and Jeremiah. They're pretty good.
Gotcha, yeah. I'm not as big of a Kiper fan, but I definitely respect him because he's kind of like he's the OG in the industry.
OG, man. Been there forever.
Like the original guy. He made the business, basically.
Yeah. No question about that. Ryan?
Yeah, as a Raider fan, I can't figure out this edge class, and I know they need an edge rusher, and they're basically set at the 5 technique with Farrell, and Crosby can play there. Break down a couple of the guys that might fit on the other side at the Leo position. I can't fit, like I said, the 2 Miami guys, Collins, if you think he's an edge rusher, Olajari. There's a million names out there, Kwity Paye, but who do you like that could fit in that position for the Raiders in the first round?
Yeah, so, I mean, you're 100% on it. I think this year, the biggest difference between the last 2 years is there's not that, like, clear edge one. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the last few years, there's been, like, those high-end guys that we're talking about as top 5 picks, where there's like almost no ambiguity to it. But this year it's all up in the air. For expand the box score, we've got the highest guy we've got is Kwity Paye. He's to me, he's just one of that freak of nature type of guy. I mean, I think he played at like 275 and as athletic as hell. I know I've seen videos of him just doing crazy stuff in the gym and whatnot. I think the biggest problem with him is he doesn't quite have the production you're looking at. Now, I think part of that had to do with the shortened COVID season. He only played in 4 games this year. So that's part of the reason why he might not be getting as much as hype. And, he topped out at 6 sacks last year and only had like 1 before. He's certainly not a polished product right now. And then our edge 2 right now is going to be Greg Rasu. The problem I have with Greg Rasu is I hesitate to say this because I know it sounds ridiculous, but last year or 2 years ago in 2019, he might have had the most unimpressive 16-sack season I've ever seen. And when I say, like, I hesitate to say that because I realize how ridiculous that statement sounds. But like the way I look at him is like he wins two ways. He's either going to win with speed and athleticism off the line of scrimmage around the tackle, or he's going to be able to turn speed to power with a nice little up and under move, which I mean is good counter and whatnot. But like that's really about it. He's not technically refined right now, and I would have liked to see him to see if he could replicate what he did, or at least show more growth in that aspect, or at least use his hands better. And even if he didn't, I mean, if he put up another 10 in a shortened season, another 10-sack season, and still had just those two moves, and I'd shut up a little bit and be like, maybe those are just really freaking good. I don't know. But those are the kind of the two top-notch guys for us. After that, I mean, Jalen Phillips, like the other Miami guy I know you're referencing, he's kind of like, he's definitely gained some steam, and I think he's a really good player. He's really got all the tools and can win probably more frequently with more ruse than Rasu can. The problem with him is he's already retired, and it's like he's had 4 concussions at UCLA. It's kind of like,
that's a lot.
Really, yeah, like, you sure you want to do this? Like, come on, man. And so it's like there's almost like a moral thing to like drafting him. It's like, should I encourage this guy who's had so many already brain trauma to continue to play football? And then the other guy that I kind of like that actually stood out at the Senior Bowl, and I got to correct you, Ryan. There's 3 edge rushers from Miami, because you got to put some respect on Quincy Roche. He'd be more of like the third, fourth round guy. He at the Senior Bowl absolutely killed it. I mean, he won with quickness. He made Alex Leatherwood look like a guard, and he had a hell of a week. And the last guy I'll bring up is I'm gonna butcher this one. Out of Georgia, Aziz Onjulari. Please correct me if I'm saying that wrong. I'm sure.
I think it's Ojulari. I'm not. Yeah, I think you're right.
Aziz. We'll go with the guy from Georgia. How about that? And I mean, he's another guy that's kind of he'll fit the first round mold and whatnot. It's just a matter of who's going to be there and what their board looks like, because, like I said, there's just so much traffic at the top of who's better than who. I mean, you could probably look at 5 different big boards and get 5 different answers for the top 5 guys. It's a mess up there. Then there's not a guy that really stands out amongst the crew, which no, don't mean to rehash. Kind of makes the last few draft classes a little bit more frustrating now that we realize we still need an edge rusher. So
yeah, I think the more I look at this edge class, and I'm looking for someone that could fit more in that Leo role that Gus Bradley likes, and he's had Melvin Ingram's, kind of these undersized 3-4 type of guys. I keep getting drawn back to Ojulari. Like, I have the same problem with Rasu as you do. Like, a lot of his production was inside. They were coverage sacks. He doesn't have a great get off.
Right.
Like a 6'7" guy is not playing in that position. They're going to have a hard enough time putting Crosby in that position. So I'm gravitating more to those undersized guys. And Ojulari just wins with hands. He can hold up in the run game. Joseph Asai, Roche that you mentioned, like, he'd be a great pick in the 3rd round. He'd fit right into that position. But that's typically not a bigger normal end that's going to be 6'3", 6'4", 260. They're always an undersized guy. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Go ahead.
No, that's all I was saying.
Okay. Yeah, Asai's an interesting guy because I haven't had a chance to watch him yet, but I know our guy Mark John is big on Osai, and actually when we were doing a little mock draft, he had the Raiders and took him at 17. So that's definitely another name to keep an eye on. I don't know as much about him. I haven't had a chance to grind the tape on him just yet, but yeah.
Yeah, I did a mock draft today, and I had him taking Ojulari,
Gotcha,
kind of that guy that can fit in. He doesn't have to start right away. He could be if he wants to play Sam linebacker, great. If they want to use him as a 3rd down rusher while they play Crosby and Farrell, great.
Gotcha.
And then the only other question I'd have is the 2 safeties. Can you break down Richie Grant, who's got a lot of steam going up the boards, and then Trayvon Moehrig, because the Raiders could be looking at one of those 2 guys.
Yeah, I mean, Moehrig, they're kind of similar. I think Moehrig's kind of the consensus number 1 right now. Moehrig's the guy that at TCU that he kind of did it all. Obviously they had our Darius Washington too, who was more the deep safety for him. But yeah, I mean, I like Moehrig a lot. He can cover. I think he can erase tight ends if you want to put him in the box, and he can go play the center field.
Can you take him at 17?
Yeah.
Is that too early?
I think 17 will work for him. Yeah, I feel like that's about the sweet spot where he's going to land too. I feel like he could be a guy that, ends up in the early 20s or mid-teens. I feel like that would probably be the most ideal to fit the need for what they have right now. But I'm a big fan of Richie Grant, like what you're just saying. I mean,
Absolutely.
Richie Grant, he's another guy at the Senior Bowl. Guy was out there covering wide receivers, shutting them down, like getting picks in one-on-one drills, which never happens. And I mean, he was basically played all over the field for UCF this last year, and that's what he showed. And I mean, that's huge for a safety. He's a guy that can play multiple roles, can play multiple hats. He's best as I think he's best as that center field role. But I mean, he's fine in the box too. He's not going to be taking on blocks from offensive linemen and getting off them. But I think he has the quickness to avoid them at least and go up and make the plays. But to answer your question, you asked me about Moreg at 17. I think that'd be a little bit rich for them. If they wanted to take him in the first round, I think they could trade back and, maybe get some more value, trade back into the mid 20s and take him. But again, I mean, the guy's stock's been rising since the season ended. So who knows? Maybe they have to take him at 17. Maybe somebody else has him up there that they get there. If he is the pick at 17, I wouldn't hate it. I'd be happy with it, but also I would feel like they'd be leaving a little bit of meat on the bone where they could have, maybe pick up an extra fourth or whatnot by moving back.
I think Grant is a guy that'd be awesome in the second round. I just have this feeling he's going back into the first couple of picks of the second.
Somebody's going to grab him.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to grab him. I clicked on Twitter, and Twitter can be fun, as we know. And Chris Sims had a different quarterback at number 1 going to Jacksonville. Listen, Trevor Lawrence is going 1. That's why Urban Meyer came out of with a little semi-retirement to come out of TV to do it. Have you looked at Zach Wilson at all? Do you like him a lot? I mean, it's hard. I like what I see from him. Do you worry about the competition and stuff like that he played against? What are your thoughts about Zach Wilson?
I mean, the thing that I love about Zach Wilson is the guy has a freaking cannon and he can place the ball wherever he wants on the deep ball. Now, the problem I have with Zach Wilson is I don't know if he knows how to read a defense. There are plenty of plays where I'm sitting there, he has the shallow crosser, he has the easy throw over the middle that he just doesn't take. And, I'm watching it and he's looking at it. Like he sees it, but he just doesn't take it. And I mean, if we're talking about him going to the Raiders, I think him and Gruden, it would be the testament of if Gruden really wants a quarterback that's going to check it down and take completions. Because if he does, him and Zach Wilson would kill each other by week 3.
I wasn't talking about the Raiders per se. I was talking about just overall, just because he's almost a consensus number 2 over Justin Fields and Trey Lance. So I was just wondering how you felt about him as a player when you watch him.
Yeah, I like Fields a little bit better. Zach Wilson's I think in our grading system, he's only about 0.2 of a point lower than Justin Fields. I mean, Justin Fields to me, I think is a little bit better, a little bit more accurate, especially in the short areas. And I think Fields is a better decision maker. Like I was saying, Wilson has that more gunslinger mentality, but Wilson has a better arm. I mean, Wilson, he can put it on a rope on the run. He can throw it 40 yards in the air. No problem. It's just effortless. And again, he can puts it on the back shoulder, puts it towards the sideline where only his guy can get it consistently. And when you're talking about level of competition, well, that's the kind of stuff that transfers. That's the kind of stuff where if you put the ball where it is, it doesn't matter who's out there. It doesn't matter if it's, some San Diego State corner or if it's Darrelle Revis. If you put the ball, a perfect ball is going to beat perfect coverage just about every single time. And that's what we see from him. And then it's just a matter of, can this guy make the right decision consistently, and can he be accurate in the shorter areas? Because it's a little bit weird. He's not quite as he's still accurate, but not quite as accurate on the shorter throws and leading his wide receivers for yak. So yeah, that's Wilson.
You're the Jets, and you're on the clock at number 2. Who are you taking?
I'm taking Fields. I like him a lot. Like I said, I think obviously the conversation about him has been, can he read the field if teams having questions if he can read coverages. I don't think that's necessarily the case. What I think it is with Justin Fields is he's just very risk averse because he knows he's such a good athlete that he can make a play with his feet. So his mindset is, instead of forcing this ball into a tight window in the middle of the field, I'll just pull it down and use my feet and, avoid making a negative play, go pick up, maybe even turn it into a positive one because he's such a good athlete. I think with him, I've seen plenty of times where he perfectly reads a defense and makes the right throw. So I don't think it's that. I just think when he makes the right throws and makes those reads, it's usually outside the numbers, and he's not going to take the risk and fit it into a tight window. But yeah, that's just for me. Like, I think if you're looking for a guy right now to come in and make an impact on your team, Justin Fields is your guy over Zach Wilson. Whereas Zach Wilson has higher upside because he has that arm cannon and can make so many off-platform throws. Kind of has that Brett Favre to him, if you will.
It's funny. Ryan Russillo had this take about quarterbacks and drafting quarterbacks. You don't want to draft a quarterback who has a three-car garage. So that's why he's out on Zach Wilson. I thought that was a pretty funny line. If you're Atlanta, would you take a chance on? Here's Atlanta. They have a veteran team. The quarterback is older. You're not going to be in this in the top 5 often. You don't think so? Do you take the predecessor for Matt Ryan in Trey Lance? That's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, by the time we get to draft day, Mac Jones is going to be Tom Brady, and I'm really getting kind of a little crazed hearing about how great Mac Jones is.
Yeah, I think if I'm Atlanta, like you said, how many other times are they going to be drafting the top 5? The other end of the coin is that if they don't take their guy that they need, or if they don't fix any needs, they could be in the top 5 next year. But I think if you're Atlanta and the way this quarterback class is pretty damn deep. We haven't seen a class this deep since what was it? Baker Mayfield's class 2018, where there are like 5 guys who we're saying there are 5 guys that could possibly go top 10. I think if you're Atlanta and Zach Wilson is on the board, or even if you want to go with the hometown guy and Justin Fields and he's still on the board, I think you got to pull the trigger. Yeah. Zach Wilson, I think that would be a good spot for him, just because, like you said, going from a group of 5 school to the NFL is a huge jump. And to have a year to kind of sit and take things in and get used to the speed of the game and sit behind a guy like Matt Ryan, who's a former MVP, that's a good spot for you, even though I'm sure he wants to play right away, as any competitor would be. And sorry, I forgot the second part of your question.
Mac Jones is the next Tom Brady. I keep hearing that every show. I heard Matt Miller, formerly of Bleacher Report, now with ESPN, like he was kind of compared him to Kirk Cousins, and I like that. And that's fair. That's a fair one. That's a fair one.
Exactly. And I think people are going to look down on it because kind of Kirk Cousins is the punchline. Kirk Cousins, every time he's on national TV, sucks. But Kirk Cousins is a starting quarterback in this league. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback who's taken teams to the playoffs and has won games.
NFC Championship game.
Yeah, he's been there, done that. Kind of a good player, just not the elite guy that you're hoping for at a quarterback position. It kind of sounds familiar talking about the Raiders, but we'll digress. I think with Mac, if he can be on his best opportunity is to kind of fall in the draft and get in with a team that already has like a good foundation. He's the type of guy that, to me, like if you put him on the Jaguars or the Jets, he's not going to do well. He's not going to be able to, fix your franchise. But what he can do is help get you over the hump and help get you to be, into the playoff contention and be a decent quarterback. But if the Saints or the Steelers could get their hands on him, then it would be a good spot for him because he can just sit behind. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, like the Tom Brady comparisons, or whatnot, and everyone's saying they like or Devontae and Waddle saying they like Mac Jones over Tua is interesting to me. But I think it helps for Devontae when you get a shiny trophy with Mac Jones and you didn't quite, and not quite with Tua. So
yeah, makes sense. Cool. Ryan, unless you got anything else, I'm gonna let Matt enjoy his evening.
No, I'm pretty good. He did a good job breaking down the edges and the 2 safeties, the questions I had.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We're asking for a friend, Mayak. So hopefully, thank you for joining us here on the Put on Waivers podcast, NFL show. We appreciate it, and keep up the good work, Matt. No problem.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care.